Racist manager refuses to serve black woman. Shocked when she buys the restaurant. A woman walks into a high-end restaurant expecting a nice meal, but instead she's met with humiliation and disrespect. The manager, blinded by his own prejudice, refuses to serve her, convinced she doesn't belong in his establishment. His arrogance drives him to mock her in front of other customers, but little does he know she's not just any customer. What happens next will leave him speechless and teach a powerful lesson about respect and humility. Before we dive into this inspiring story, let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales that challenge prejudice and celebrate resilience. Stay tuned for a shocking twist you won't see coming. The sound of clinking glasses and murmured conversations filled the air as diners enjoyed their meals in the busy, upscale restaurant. Waitstaff moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays of gourmet dishes with precision. Every detail in the space reflected luxury and refinement, from the soft glow of the chandeliers to the polished silverware set meticulously on each table. The manager stood near the bar, his sharp suit and confident posture giving him an air of authority. To those who didn't know him, he appeared professional and capable. However, behind the polished exterior was a man who thrived on control, often using his position to belittle others. His judgments were quick, his opinions unwavering, and he rarely hesitated to assert his dominance over those he deemed unworthy of the establishment. He believed his restaurant was a place for a certain kind of clientele, and his behavior reflected this narrow mindset. Patrons who didn't fit his preconceived mold often found themselves on the receiving end of dismissive glances, condescending remarks, or outright refusal of service. To him, appearances mattered more than character, and he felt justified in acting as the gatekeeper of exclusivity. Amid the hum of activity, a woman stepped through the doors, her presence commanding attention without effort. She was poised, dressed in tailored attire that spoke of success and confidence. Her calm, assured demeanor was a reflection of her journey, a journey marked by resilience, hard work, and an unyielding belief in herself. She was no stranger to judgment. Her experiences navigating a world often quick to underestimate her had shaped her into a composed and assertive individual. Her success as an entrepreneur was a testament to her intelligence, strategic thinking, and ability to rise above challenges. She approached the hostess stand with a polite smile, her tone steady as she requested a table. The hostess glanced toward the manager, her hesitation revealing her uncertainty. The manager, noticing the interaction, stepped in with his usual air of superiority. Without so much as a second thought, he dismissed the woman, claiming the restaurant was fully booked despite the visible availability of tables. His tone was clipped, laced with an unspoken assumption about her. "We're not taking walk-ins tonight," he said, his expression indifferent. The woman remained calm, her composed demeanor a stark contrast to his dismissiveness. "I see open tables," she noted, her voice steady and polite. "They're reserved," he replied curtly, his tone making it clear he had no intention of accommodating her. The manager's behavior reflected a pattern he had repeated countless times before. He viewed himself as the ultimate authority within the restaurant, believing his judgments were beyond question. To him, the woman didn't belong there, and he felt no obligation to treat her with respect or dignity. The woman, however, wasn't rattled. Years of facing similar attitudes had taught her how to remain composed in the face of prejudice. She didn't argue or escalate the situation, choosing instead to leave with her dignity intact. Her calm departure was a quiet statement in itself, a refusal to be drawn into the manager's game. But this wasn't the end. The manager, smug in his perceived victory, returned to his position, unaware of the storm he had just set in motion. To him, the incident was insignificant, a routine moment of enforcing standards. However, for the woman, it was a reminder of why she had worked so hard to succeed. Her life had been shaped by moments like these, moments where she was underestimated, dismissed, or treated unfairly. Each time she had used the experience as fuel to drive her forward, building a career that not only elevated her, but also empowered others. What the manager didn't know was that the woman he had dismissed so easily was no ordinary diner. She was a visionary entrepreneur with the resources and determination to create change, and this particular encounter had ignited something within her. As she walked out of the restaurant, her mind was already working. This wasn't just about one manager's actions. It was about the broader issue of prejudice and the need to challenge it wherever it appeared. The manager's arrogance had blinded him to the reality of who she was and what she was capable of, and soon he would learn just how wrong he had been. The manager stood at the edge of the dining area, his sharp eyes scanning the room as though he were a guard at an exclusive club. Every now and then, he would straighten his tie or glance at his reflection in the polished windows, exuding an air of superiority. The arrival of the poised, well-dressed woman earlier had been enough to catch his attention, but not for reasons rooted in respect or admiration. As the woman approached the hostess stand, his expression shifted to one of barely concealed disdain. While she stood calmly, waiting to be seated, the manager strode over with the deliberate, self-assured pace of someone who believed his authority was unquestionable. The hostess glanced at the seating chart, but hesitated when she felt the manager's presence beside her. He didn't give her a chance to respond to the woman's polite request for a table. Instead, he spoke up, his voice laced with an unmistakable edge of condescension. "I'm sorry," he began, cutting off the hostess before she could say anything, "but we're fully booked tonight." The woman looked at him, her expression calm and composed. She glanced at the dining room behind him, noting the half-empty tables scattered throughout the space. "It doesn't seem that way," she said evenly. "They're reserved." The manager replied quickly, his tone curt. He folded his arms across his chest, making it clear he wasn't interested in further discussion. The woman met his gaze without flinching. "Is that so?" she asked, her voice steady. "How long is the wait for a table?" "There is no wait," the manager said, his tone growing sharper. "We're not accepting walk-ins tonight." The underlying message was clear, and the woman understood it immediately. However, she wasn't one to react impulsively. Instead, she took a moment to observe him, noting the slight smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth and the way his eyes flickered with self-satisfaction. "I see," she said finally. Her words were simple, but the weight of her calm tone seemed to unsettle him for a moment. The manager, however, quickly recovered. "Perhaps you'd feel more comfortable at one of the establishments down the street," he added, his words carrying an unmistakable air of dismissal. The woman tilted her head slightly, her gaze steady. "And why is that?" she asked, her voice remaining calm but firm. The question caught him off guard. "Well," he stammered, "this is an upscale restaurant and we cater to a certain clientele." "Ah," the woman said, her tone neutral. "And you've decided I don't fit that description?" The manager straightened his posture, regaining his confidence. "I'm not obligated to explain our policies to you," he said dismissively, "but I suggest you leave before this becomes an issue." By now, a few diners nearby had begun to take notice. Their conversations hushed as they watched the interaction unfold, some with curiosity, others with discomfort. The woman remained composed, her dignity intact. "I see," she said again, her voice calm but resolute. "Thank you for making your position clear." She turned to leave, but as she stepped toward the door, She paused and glanced back over her shoulder. "You might want to rethink how you treat people," she said, her tone carrying a quiet strength. "I'll be back." The manager let out a short, derisive laugh, assuming she was bluffing. "I don't think that'll be necessary," he called after her, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Without another word, the woman walked out of the restaurant, her composure unshaken despite the humiliation she had just endured. For her, the interaction was less about the manager's actions and more about what it represented, yet another example of prejudice disguised as professionalism. Inside the restaurant, the manager returned to his station, smugly satisfied with himself. He glanced at the diners who had witnessed the exchange, offering them a self-assured smile as if to say, "Problem handled." Most turned back to their meals, though a few exchanged uneasy glances. One waiter quietly approached the manager. "Do you think that was necessary?" he asked, hesitantly. The manager waved him off dismissively. "Stay in your lane," he said curtly. "I know how to run this place." But the waiter wasn't the only one questioning the manager's behavior. Among the diners, murmurs began to spread, some expressing discomfort with what they had just witnessed. "That was unnecessary," one patron whispered to her companion. "She wasn't doing anything wrong." "Unbelievable," another muttered under his breath. Despite the undercurrent of disapproval, the manager remained oblivious. To him, the matter was resolved, and he felt no need to dwell on it. What he didn't realize was that the woman's parting words were far from an empty statement. While he returned to his routine, smug in his sense of control, the woman was already planning her next move. Her quiet strength and composed demeanor weren't just traits. They were the foundation of her success. She had faced countless situations like this before, and each time she had risen above them. This time would be no different. The manager, blinded by his own prejudice and arrogance, had no idea who he had just dismissed. He saw her only as someone who didn't belong, failing to recognize the depth of her character or the weight of her resolve. But soon he would learn a lesson he would never forget. A few days later, the restaurant was as bustling as ever. The manager stood near the bar, surveying the dining area with the same air of superiority as before. He barked a few instructions to the staff, nitpicking over minor details as if to assert his authority. The door swung open, and the woman he had dismissed earlier walked in. This time, her confidence seemed even more pronounced. She was dressed sharply, her posture commanding respect without a single word spoken. The manager's eyes flicked to her, and for a moment he froze. Recognition flashed across his face, but he quickly covered it with a smirk. "Back again?" he called out, his tone laced with sarcasm. "I thought I made it clear this wasn't the place for you." The woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked straight to the center of the room, her heels clicking against the polished floor. All eyes turned to her as she stopped, her calm demeanor captivating the attention of employees and diners alike. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady and confident. "Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make an announcement." The manager frowned, stepping forward. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. She turned to him, her gaze unwavering. "I'm doing what any responsible owner would do," she replied, her words deliberate. The room went silent. The manager's smirk faltered. "Owner?" he repeated, his tone filled with disbelief. "That's correct," the woman said, holding up a set of keys. "As of this morning, I am the new owner of this establishment." Gasps rippled through the room, and the staff exchanged stunned glances. The manager's face turned pale as he struggled to process what he had just heard. "That's impossible," he stammered. "You're joking." "I assure you, I'm not," the woman said calmly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, placing it on the nearest table. Here are the documents confirming the transfer of ownership. Feel free to review them if you'd like." The manager stared at the folder but didn't move. His hands trembled slightly, and his usual confidence seemed to drain away. This can't be happening," he muttered. "Oh, it's happening," the woman said firmly. She turned to address the room. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm an entrepreneur who has spent years building businesses that prioritize respect, inclusivity, and excellence. When I walked into this restaurant a few days ago, I saw potential, but I also saw a culture that needs to change." Her words were met with murmurs of agreement from some of the staff, who nodded subtly. The manager, however, wasn't ready to back down. "You don't know how this place works," he said, his voice rising in desperation. "I've been running this restaurant for years. You can't just walk in and—" She cut him off, her tone sharp. "And what? Continue fostering a toxic environment where people are judged and dismissed based on superficial assumptions? That ends today." The manager bristled, trying to regain control. "You don't understand the kind of clientele we deal with," he argued. "They expect a certain standard. A standard that begins with respect," she interjected. "What I witnessed from you the other day was anything but professional or respectful. You humiliated me without cause, assuming I didn't belong here simply because of your own biases. That behavior is unacceptable, and it will no longer be tolerated." The employees exchanged nervous glances, many of them clearly relieved by her words but unsure how to react. One waiter finally spoke up, his voice hesitant. "Does this mean things will change around here?" "Yes," the woman said, her tone softening as she turned to him. "This restaurant will be a place where everyone, staff and customers alike, is treated with dignity and fairness. I want this to be a space that people are proud to be a part of." The manager scoffed, though his confidence was clearly waning. "You think you can just come in here and fix everything overnight?" "No," she replied evenly. "Change takes time and effort. But it starts with accountability." She looked him directly in the eye. "And that's where you come in." The manager's face flushed. "What's that supposed to mean?" he asked defensively. "It means your actions have consequences," she said firmly. "Your behavior has been unacceptable, and it has created a culture of fear and exclusion. That ends now." For a moment, the manager seemed at a loss for words. He opened his mouth to respond, but closed it again, his mind clearly racing. The woman continued, her voice steady. "You have two choices. You can either commit to changing your behavior and working toward the kind of environment this restaurant deserves, or you can step aside and make room for someone who will." The room was silent, all eyes on the manager. He shifted uncomfortably, his earlier arrogance now replaced by visible uncertainty. One of the chefs, who had been quietly observing from the kitchen doorway, stepped forward. "If I may," he said, addressing the woman. "I've been working here for years, and I've seen how things have been run. I think what you're saying is exactly what this place needs." The woman nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you," she said. "Your support means a lot, and I want to hear from all of you as we move forward. This is a team effort, and everyone's input matters." The manager's shoulders slumped as he realized the tide was turning against him. The employees, emboldened by the woman's words, began to nod and murmur their agreement. "You're making a mistake," the manager said weakly, his voice barely audible. "No," the woman replied firmly. "The mistake was allowing this toxic culture to persist for so long. And that ends today." She turned back to the staff and customers. "Thank you all for your patience as we begin this transition. My goal is to create a space where excellence and respect go hand in hand. If you have any concerns or suggestions, my door is always open." The employees began to applaud, their expressions a mix of relief and hope. The manager, meanwhile, stood frozen, his future now uncertain. As the applause died down, the woman turned back to him one last time. "This isn't just about you," she said. "It's about setting a standard and ensuring that everyone, no matter who they are, is treated with the respect they deserve." With that, she walked toward the office, leaving the manager to reflect on the consequences of his actions. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and it was clear that the restaurant's future was now in capable, compassionate hands. The manager sat in the office, his head in his hands, still reeling from the announcement. His authority, his control, his years of running the restaurant, all of it now hung in the balance. He replayed the moment the woman had presented her ownership papers, the room erupting into murmurs of disbelief. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Meanwhile, the woman calmly addressed the staff, customers, and lingering bystanders outside the office. Her composed demeanor had not wavered, but now there was an unmistakable strength in her words. "For those wondering who I am," she began, her voice steady but commanding attention, "I'm more than just the new owner of this restaurant. I'm someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated, dismissed, and judged unfairly. But I've never let that stop me." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. The staff listened intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and admiration. "My name is Cassandra," she continued, "and I'm the founder of a successful hospitality group. I've built my career by creating spaces where people feel valued, spaces where respect is a non-negotiable standard." The murmurs grew louder as recognition spread among some of the employees. "Wait, is she the Cassandra Blake?" one whispered to another. "Yes, the Cassandra Blake," she confirmed, turning to address the employees directly. "This isn't just about owning a restaurant. It's about setting a standard and creating an environment where everyone is treated with dignity. That includes customers, staff, and anyone who walks through these doors." The employees began to nod, their initial shock giving way to a sense of relief and hope. For years, they had endured the toxic culture fostered by the manager, afraid to speak up for fear of retaliation. Now, they felt like things might finally change. The manager, hearing the growing support outside the office, finally stood and stepped out into the dining area. His face was pale, his earlier arrogance replaced by visible unease. He glanced at Cassandra, then at the employees and customers who had gathered around her. This doesn't make any sense," he stammered, addressing her. "How could you just walk in here and buy the place?" Cassandra turned to him, her expression calm but firm. "It's simple," she said. "When you refused to serve me, I recognized an opportunity. I saw a business with potential, but one that was being dragged down by its leadership. So, I made a few calls, reviewed the financials, and made an offer to the previous owner. An offer they accepted." The manager's jaw tightened. "You can't just waltz in here and change everything overnight," he argued, his voice rising. "No," Cassandra agreed. "Change doesn't happen overnight. But it starts somewhere." Her words hung in the air as she stepped closer to him, her gaze unwavering. "Do you remember what you said to me the other day? That I didn't belong here? That I should go somewhere else?" The manager didn't respond, his face reddening as he realized the weight of his own words. "Well," Cassandra continued, "I didn't leave. Instead, I made sure I'd never have to hear those words again in this space, because now this space belongs to me." The employees, emboldened by her resolve, began to nod and voice their support. "She's right," one waiter said. This place needs to change, and it starts with how people are treated." Another employee added, "We've been putting up with the toxic environment for years. It's about time someone stepped in and made things better." The manager turned to the staff, his frustration evident. "Are you seriously siding with her?" he demanded. "Do you have any idea how much I've done for this restaurant?" The room fell silent for a moment before Cassandra spoke again. "What you've done is create an environment where people feel small, dismissed, and undervalued," she said. "And that stops today." She turned back to the employees and addressed them directly. "This restaurant is nothing without you. You're the ones who keep it running, who create the experience for our customers. And from this day forward, your voices matter. Your input matters. If there's something you think needs to change, I want to hear it." The staff broke into applause, their relief and gratitude palpable. The manager, now visibly shaken, tried one last time to defend himself. "I was just trying to maintain high standards," he said weakly. "High standards begin with respect," Cassandra countered. "And respect is something you've consistently failed to show, to your staff, to your customers, and even to yourself." The manager opened his mouth to respond, but found he had nothing to say. The weight of the moment had finally sunk in. Cassandra took a step back, addressing the room once more. "I didn't buy this restaurant just to own another business," she said. "I bought it because I believe in what it can become. A place where excellence and inclusivity go hand in hand. A place where no one feels out of place because of who they are." The customers, who had been watching quietly, began to clap. A few even approached her to express their support. "Thank you for doing this," one woman said. "It's inspiring to see someone take a stand." As the applause died down, Cassandra turned back to the manager. "I'll leave it up to you," she said. "You can either commit to becoming part of the solution, or you can step aside. But one way or another, this restaurant is moving forward, and it's moving forward without prejudice, without arrogance, and without the toxic culture you've allowed to flourish." The manager stood frozen, his future now uncertain. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and he knew there was no going back. Cassandra, satisfied that her message had been received, walked toward the office. Before stepping inside, she turned back to address the staff one last time. "Thank you for your patience and your support," she said. "I look forward to working with all of you to make this place better than ever." With that, she closed the office door behind her, leaving the manager and the employees to reflect on what had just happened. The atmosphere in the dining area was no longer tense. Instead, it was filled with a sense of hope and anticipation for what was to come. For Cassandra, the moment wasn't just about buying a restaurant. It was about reclaiming her dignity, challenging prejudice, and setting a new standard for how people are treated. One decision, one action, and one restaurant at a time. The days following Cassandra's announcement brought sweeping changes to the restaurant. The manager, once the untouchable authority, now faced the consequences of his actions. After a thorough review of his behavior and numerous complaints from employees, Cassandra made the decision to remove him from his position. It wasn't a decision she made lightly. "I believe in giving people the chance to grow and learn," she explained during a staff meeting. "But growth requires accountability, and that begins with acknowledging the harm that's been done." The former manager, stripped of his authority, was offered a chance to stay on as a junior employee under close supervision if he agreed to undergo training on workplace ethics and inclusivity. It was a humbling offer, and though he initially resisted, the stark reality of losing his job altogether left him little choice. He reluctantly accepted, vowing to prove he could change. For Cassandra, The goal wasn't revenge, it was transformation. She knew that lasting change came from addressing the root of the problem, not just removing a single individual. Her focus was on building an environment that fostered respect, collaboration, and excellence. She began by holding open forums with the staff, inviting them to share their concerns, ideas, and experiences. For many, it was the first time they felt truly heard. "We've been afraid to speak up for so long," one waiter admitted during a meeting. "But now, it feels like we're finally part of something positive." Cassandra implemented new policies aimed at creating a more inclusive and supportive workplace. She introduced anonymous feedback systems, conflict resolution training, and regular workshops on cultural sensitivity and teamwork. Every decision she made was rooted in her belief that a business could only thrive when its people felt valued. The impact of these changes was immediate. Employees who had once dreaded coming to work now felt a renewed sense of purpose. The toxic culture that had plagued the restaurant began to dissipate, replaced by a spirit of camaraderie and mutual respect. The restaurant's customers noticed the difference, too. Word began to spread about the transformation, and soon more people were flocking to the establishment, not just for its food, but for the welcoming atmosphere. Cassandra's leadership extended beyond the walls of the restaurant. News of the incident that led to her buying the business had circulated widely, sparking conversations in the community and beyond. Social media was flooded with posts about her story, with many praising her resilience and vision. "This is what leadership looks like," one post read, turning a moment of injustice into an opportunity for growth and change. The local community rallied around Cassandra, supporting her efforts to make the restaurant a beacon of inclusivity. She partnered with local organizations to host events promoting diversity, equality, and small business empowerment. The restaurant quickly became more than just a dining destination. It became a symbol of hope and progress. Even those who had initially doubted Cassandra's decision to keep the former manager on staff began to see the wisdom in her approach. Over time, he started to change, slowly shedding the arrogance that had defined him for so long. Though the process wasn't without setbacks, Cassandra remained firm yet compassionate, reminding him that growth was a journey, not a destination. In one particularly poignant moment, the former manager approached Cassandra after a shift. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said hesitantly, "for giving me a second chance. I didn't deserve it, but I'm trying to do better." Cassandra looked at him, her expression kind but measured. "Change starts with recognizing where you went wrong," she said. "And if you're willing to keep learning, I'm willing to keep giving you the opportunity to grow." The moment reflected the broader moral of Cassandra's story, the power of grace, accountability, and the belief that people, when given the chance, can rise above their mistakes. The ripple effects of Cassandra's actions extended far beyond the restaurant. Her story inspired countless others to reflect on their own behavior and biases. "I've been guilty of making snap judgments," one customer admitted during a community event hosted at the restaurant. But hearing Cassandra's story made me realize how damaging that can be. I want to do better. For Cassandra, the experience was a reminder of why she had worked so hard to build her career. "Every challenge I've faced has taught me something valuable," she said during an interview with a local news outlet. And this was no different. It's not about the setbacks, it's about what you do in response to them. The restaurant, now thriving under Cassandra's leadership, became a model for what a business could achieve when respect and inclusivity were prioritized. The employees felt empowered, the customers felt welcome, and the community felt proud to support a business that stood for something greater. As Cassandra reflected on the journey, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She hadn't just bought a restaurant. She had transformed it into a space that reflected her values and her vision for a better, more equitable world. The former manager's story, too, became one of redemption. While he still had much to prove, his willingness to change and grow earned him a measure of respect from his colleagues. His journey served as a reminder that even those who have erred deeply can find a path to redemption if they are willing to take responsibility and work toward change. In the end, Cassandra's story wasn't just about one incident or one restaurant. It was about standing up against prejudice, using adversity as an opportunity for growth, and leading with compassion and integrity. As the restaurant continued to thrive, Cassandra remained focused on her mission. She knew there was still work to be done, but she also knew that change was possible. One person, one decision, and one act of courage at a time. The restaurant's sign now bore a new slogan, chosen by Cassandra herself, "Where everyone belongs." It was a simple statement, but it carried profound meaning, serving as a daily reminder of the values that defined her leadership. For the community, the employees, and even the former manager, the restaurant had become more than just a place to eat. It had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and the belief that we are all capable of creating a better world when we choose to lead with respect and understanding. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. Judging someone by their appearance can blind us to their true worth. Respect and kindness are the foundations of true success. Cassandra's journey reminds us that even in the face of prejudice, strength, grace, and determination can turn injustice into opportunity. By standing firm and leading with dignity, she not only transformed a toxic environment, but also inspired others to reflect on their own behavior and biases. Now, let's turn to you. Have you ever faced prejudice or witnessed it happening to someone else? How did you respond, and what did you learn from the experience? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and it could inspire someone else to see things differently. If Cassandra's story moved you, don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel for more impactful tales that challenge injustice and celebrate resilience. Together, we can amplify stories that teach, inspire, and empower. Thank you for being a part of this journey. See you in the next story, where we uncover more truths that challenge and inspire us all. Until then, let's continue to stand for respect, equality, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to thrive.